If the West Virginia Mountaineers are going to be successful in 2026, it's going to be because certain guys actually work out. And I'm not talking about guys from the portal either. We've got returning players that need to perform at a high level for West Virginia to truly reach its peak.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back in, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host here. Welcome back into Locked On West Virginia, baby. Paul After Dark style. I appreciate you guys for being here. I had technical difficulties, so I do apologize for a little bit late of a start. But let's dive into this, man. Like at the end of the day, let's obsess over Mountaineer football, Mountaineer sports, and be the crazy nutcase fans that we are. This episode going to be brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Look, when it comes to Mazda, we put some drive into every detail, right? We put that drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in that work, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, where there's more to a Mazda vehicle because there's more to you. And we would like to thank you guys so much for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're talking about your team, the Mountaineers, every single day. And I mean every single day here. We go 7 days a week here. We go twice a day, or at least try. Sometimes we miss one recording a day. Very rarely do we miss a recording at all, usually only because of sickness. Just trying to grind, So appreciate you guys for all you do and the support, no matter how big or small. I don't expect a huge crowd tonight, but you could surprise me. Actually, I've had some big crowds late here lately, 100, 200 people. So not bad for 11 o'clock at night. Let's dive straight into this topic, though, because I think this is a fun one and it's relevant because we're talking about West Virginia and the success or lack thereof based on what? Well, portal players? No, not necessarily. What about the incumbents at a lot of spots? Or what about the guys that are on the cusp or were on the cusp of breaking through or maybe didn't play because we had a really bad offensive line coach last year, or whatever you want to call it? I've got about 10 or 11 guys that I went through the roster and really think after thought that to varying degrees, I think they're going to make an impact. And a couple of these guys have a chance to make the major impact like a starter, right? So I want to go through this list and tell me what you think about it, because there are a few guys on here that haven't really broken through yet, but I do think they will. So let's dive straight into this because I think these guys are going to be kind of like glue guys or something thereabouts. And it should be an interesting conversation nonetheless. All right, so jumping straight in, we're going to coming off strong. Let's start out. I debated on where to start because there is a lot of places you could start. Let's start with the quarterback, though. That's right. There is a quarterback on this roster that, while he won't start, I mean, it would be a total shock if he did, right? But he is somebody that is going to be integral in showing the two youngsters the ropes, right? I mean, yes, has this guy produced at a high level in college? No, not yet in his career. And whatever you want to say about him, but Max Brown, right? I mean, he's been in college as a quarterback for 4 or 5 seasons now. This is his second year as well as Scotty's in this same offense. He's going to improve. I'm not saying he's going to get back good enough to start or anything, but he's good enough to be the third guy to start, right? Maybe even the second guy if they feel like there's a separation. But I think he's got talent. I like his arm, but I always have. But it's really his legs that intrigue me. I think he could be good in this offense if he really had to be with a good team. But obviously he's a backup here, and they probably paid him to be that. So I'm surprised he didn't enter the portal. Maybe he will after the spring. That's always possible for a guy to try that and just play for next year. But he had minimal stats at West Virginia. I think he played in 3 games. He didn't do much. I had it written down here. I don't know what I've done with it. He didn't do much. I think he played in 3 games, maybe. So he's got some size, right? He was obviously a highly rated player coming out of high school. And if he's forcing the action, he's steady enough, I think, that West Virginia wouldn't fall apart, especially if the offense is as good as we think it can be. And I do think he can be a good runner, by the way. I've said that a couple times because he is a good runner. Unfortunately, on the one play he got to run last year, he got hurt. And that was really unfortunate. He has a good arm too, but he has to have a clean pocket. If he doesn't have a clean pocket, man, it falls apart, at least on tape. So Max Brown is an interesting choice. I think that while he may not be on the field playing, he's going to be very integral in helping get Michael Hawkins ready to go and Scotty Fox continuing to mentor, hopefully, him if they need it. Michael Fox is going to need caught up on this system a little bit when he gets here. So Max Brown, a really underrated piece to next year's team. But if you want to give me, if I want, somebody I'm really high on, and it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be hard, but I was excited about Malik Agbo coming back into this year. He's 6'4", 275. So he's a little, his weight was down. He's a redshirt senior. Obviously he played as a either sixth or seventh offensive lineman at Texas. He played a lot though. He had 32 appearances at Texas, like as the jumbo. He used them at offensive tackle, jumbo, tight end, offensive guard. They use him a little bit everywhere. But he's got 32 games of experience in big environments, and he's a ready-made stabilizer. And here's another thing, too. I think he can improve to the point to where he could be athletically, guys, he is truly impressive. And if he can just put on that extra weight and get to 315 or 320, man, you're talking about a guy that could make a world of difference next year and be in the battle for a starting spot. I know some people don't believe that, and that's fine. This is just my opinion. In a season, guys, you win with guys who can start at multiple spots. Here, he is a guy that can also do that. He's got that positional flexibility, and he's got game experience. And in this program, he actually had a start last year, where he just didn't. I don't think he didn't poop the bed necessarily, but he wasn't amazing either. And his light, like Rich Rod says, he little light in the ice. That showed up at 270, 275. But I do think that if he gets the weight and the strength, he's got a chance to be really good. As a pass protector, he's really good. But it's the run game where you wonder what he can be if he can get to the strength level and weight level needed, because he's got all the talent in the world from an athleticism standpoint. I mean, he really does. So I think, best case scenario, he plays in all 12 games, potentially starts across multiple spots and helps West Virginia avoid the offensive line injury spiral that happens to teams some years. And worst case scenario, I think he's a jumbo package guy. Maybe plays a little tight end on the edge and plays in some spot duty. Either way, I like him because his experience and his versatility, that's why he's on the thumbnail as well. But I like Agbo a lot. And I wouldn't be shocked if they roll out with him as a starter next year. I would not be shocked. I don't think he will because of all the pieces they brought in. But I do think he's got a shot. He's going to have his opportunity to impress Coach Trickett, as will Josh Isosa, guys. And it's another guy. When you look at a guy that played a lot of games for West Virginia last year, look no further than Josh Isosa, the transfer from Oklahoma. He is big enough at 6'3", 325, and he redshirted at Oklahoma. And so he came here last year and really made an impact right away, right? I mean, he played in a bunch of games. He can play center. He can play guard. So he can do a little bit of everything. I think he played in either 8 or 9 games last year, and he rotated in. And, while the offensive line wasn't amazing last year, I don't remember ever hearing how bad he was. As a matter of fact, I was pretty shocked that he didn't play over chemo at times last year, even as a redshirt freshman. But, at the end of the day, I think Isos is another guy that you factor into the equation this year for all West Virginia's offensive line as a guy that could potentially win a job. He's got the ability to do it, so don't count him out as another guy that could potentially push one of the transfers and win a job. And any of these guys that are on the offensive line that were already here last year, the more of those guys that we can have win a job, like I don't care who wins. I don't care if it's the starter, the people we brought in, or the guys we already have here, because Rick Trickett's coaching them now. We don't really have to worry about whether we don't have to question whether they're going to be good enough or not. Like if Trickett says they're good to go, then that's really that's the best we have, at least to start, while they're waiting for other guys to catch up or whatever. So, if one of these guys that you maybe didn't think were that good or, hadn't come on yet last year listen, like I told you guys, not 1, not 2, but 3 players told me that Bicknell was one of the worst coaches they've ever been around. And we have an article from like I said, I've showed it a million times, but there's an article that from Pittsburgh Steelers former offensive lineman talking about him, saying how toxic he was, how much politics were involved with him. Xavier Bosley, a freshman All-American in that system, didn't even snip the field. That makes no sense because after what our offensive line looked like last year. You can't convince me, I don't care what. There's no way Bosley was worse than Kimo Macaniole or any of these other guys that were on the O-line last year. So, I'm hesitant to dump these guys that didn't get to play as much because there were clearly some politics going on. Let's go to break really quick. We'll come right back and we'll dive back into a couple more players that are very interesting. Some played a lot last year. We'll be right back. And, of course, we're talking about our friends at FanDuel on this one. And right now with FanDuel, guys, if you didn't know, now you know. $5, sometimes it'll make you come holla. But right now it's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one final kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL officially comes to a close. And this is Super Bowl 60. And FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. And whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building that last game, same game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from the kickoff to the final whistle. And if you're a new customer, you can just bet $5. That'll make you come holla. You'll get $300 and $200 in bonus bets. That's if you win that first $5 bet. Make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. And it's the last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. FanDuel. Go there to get started at FanDuel.com. All right, we are back in segment 2 where I'm ashamed to admit that I've still got a Snickers due from some kind of iced coffee thing that I should not be drinking. So I'm not going to take another drink because I can already tell, like, I'm going to be up for another hour or two as it is. I don't need to drink anymore. But I was just making sure I could do this episode and not be tired. I'm good. I don't drink caffeine like outside of the Mountain Dew. Like I don't drink coffee or anything like that. So I drank one earlier and it's got me rolling a little bit here. So I don't need to drink anymore. I need to probably eat something. Okay. So back to the list here. I mean, we went over Agbo, we went over Isosa, we went over Brown, and there are other guys on this list. Like, you look at the defense side of the ball, for instance. Well, actually, let's do one more offensive guy since we've been on offense doing this. Somebody that I'm really high on is Ryan Ward. As a lot of you guys probably know, I was talking about him a bunch. The tight end transferred from North Carolina last year as a true freshman. And he didn't have a huge impact. He had 6 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown. But he is a good football player. And he's good at both. He can block and he can run a little bit and catch passes. And he's got the potential to be a go-to guy. He's not an elite athlete necessarily, but he's a very good athlete. And I do think he's got the potential to be a guy that can catch 20 or 30 balls for you and catch 5 or 6 touchdowns for you if he gets it all together this early in his career. Tight end production is often role-based, right? So if West Virginia chooses to feature him, the numbers can jump kind of fast. And a tight end who can score, heck, even once or twice, shows he can be used where it matters and can change how they're thinking about him. So, is he going to be a inline tight end? Probably not, although he's got the frame for it, 6'4", 235. I think he's got the potential to be the mismatch that we need versus safeties and linebackers. Obviously, they brought in Josh Sapp to compete with him, and I do think he'll be a guy that gets significant time to compete, on the field. But I do think that Ryan Ward is going to end up being your starter at tight end. And I could see a 3, 4, maybe 5 touchdown season for Ryan, and a guy that catches 20 or 30 balls and really gets you excited about moving forward with him. Is he an elite tight end? I don't know yet. I guess we'll find out. I do think he's got a chance to be very good. Last offensive player is Cyrus Traw. He didn't see nothing. He didn't see the field last year. At least I didn't notice it. If he did, he definitely didn't have any catches. 6 foot, 188 pounds. He is from West Virginia. He had a really great year at Youngstown where he had 36 catches, 409 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 2024. Last year, he kind of got caught behind, learning the new offense behind the depth chart. We didn't really run the ball, or we didn't really pass the ball very well. And we had a lot of slot guys, the Rodney Gallaghers of the world. We had the Singleton and, other guys who ended up leaving later. But I've loved Traw from the very beginning since we picked him up. I still think he's got a chance to be a really good guy in the slot for us. I really do. So I'm hoping that works out for him because he's an elite route runner. For at least at Youngstown State he was. Now, maybe that's the struggle here. Maybe he needed to get stronger. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm glad he's still here because I do think he's got a chance to contribute to this year's team. All right, moving on to the defensive side of the ball now. There are a couple guys that we have to feature, and a couple of them are pretty obvious, but I think they're not getting a ton of publicity in the offseason. Number one is Ashton Woods. He was on pace to have a pretty big season. His high school production was insane, by the way. 400 tackles in high school, just insane numbers. But this is a kid that's 6'3", he's 225, he looks the part, and he can really run, So, he's one of our more athletic linebackers, and I do predict him to win a starting job. I think he will win one. Just my opinion, as long as he's back from injury. Well, I don't know if that happened or not, but I'm assuming he probably is. I think he had 15 tackles last year, 7 tackles solo, 6 tackles for loss or something like that. And then he got hurt in week 6. So if you play that out over the course of the year, he's got 30, maybe 40 tackles, which would have been a really solid year for a redshirt freshman. So I think, he's got a chance to really make a huge jump this year. And if he stays healthy for the majority of the year, don't be surprised if you look up and Ashton Woods has 50 or 60 tackles next year. I would not be surprised to see that. He's that good. I really like him, and hopefully he stays healthy. Next on this list is Nate Gabriel, who obviously started a lot last year, so he's not anywhere near as much of a I don't want to say unknown necessarily, but similar to that as the other guys. His stats weren't amazing because obviously he plays on the interior, right? He played in 12 games. He started as a freshman when he was here. His freshman year was really for depth. I think he played 128 snaps I have here as a freshman. But then you saw him take a leap in year two and that year two strength jump. And he is at 295, 6'3". So that's perfect for the interior. You would love to see him take another leap like he did last year. If he does that, you're talking about a guy that could play, potentially be an all Big 12 guy. He's got the potential to do it. It really just depends on if he can take the next jump. Otherwise, he's Jack. He's just another guy. He'll get you 10 or 15 tackles from the interior and a couple tackles for loss. Not anything bad. Definitely not bad, but definitely not a guy that you're looking at like that's making play after play, or a guy that you think, oh wow, he could be the difference in this game. So, but Gabriel is the guy that I do think has the potential to be an all Big 12, second or third team guy. I don't foresee first team necessarily, but I do think he's got a chance to be a huge difference maker for West Virginia this year. Alongside with finally Corey McIntyre, who is 6'3", 284, and just a super, super talented kid. He finally stayed healthy after he was going to start as a true freshman for West Virginia, and then he got injured. And then he redshirted, and then he came back and got hurt as a redshirt freshman. And it's like, my God, man, can you catch a break? Well, finally he comes back this year as a sophomore and a redshirt sophomore, and has a good year. He played in a lot of games. I think he got his feet wet. This was basically his freshman year. And then he didn't enter the transfer portal. He could have, probably would have had somewhere to go. But smartly, he realizes that, you know what, I'm going to be needed here. I'm going to play here. Why would I leave this situation, go somewhere else where I may not even get any playing time right away? And decided to stick around. And McIntyre Jr., if he can continue to get better and not get hurt again and have no setbacks, from what we understood, he was the next big thing a couple years ago. Like they said, he was dying, and he was against Zach Frazier and all those guys, was making noise. So there's got to be something to him. And I'm going to put him on the list here and say that he could be a guy that could be a breakout star this year. By star, I mean, potential, maybe an all Big 12 honorable mention or something like that. I'm not saying like a superstar necessarily. Maybe star is a bad word to use, but I do think that Corey can make a big difference for West Virginia. Let's go to break one more time. We got one or two more guys to talk about, and we'll get out of here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. The WNBA has released its 2026 schedule featuring a 44-game regular season beginning on Friday, May 8th. The league's historic 30th season includes expansion teams Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo, with opening weekend highlights such as Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever hosting Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings, and a rematch of the 2025 finals between the Aces and the Mercury. In college hoops, South Carolina handed Vanderbilt its first loss of the season with a dominant 103-74 win. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right, guys, and we are back here. Saw somebody in the chat mentioned Marshawn Oxley, I think. who entered the transfer portal. So he is no longer with West Virginia. Or obviously he would have probably been on this list. But yeah, he's gone, unfortunately. And, it's definitely not something that any of us wanted, but it is what it is, I think he would have been obviously West Virginia brought a lot of edge guys in, 3 or 4. So, some guys don't want to compete with that many guys, and it is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to judge him in this day and age when everybody does it, but all right. So I think we got 1 or 2 more on here. Where is he? Nick Taylor. Nick Taylor is a guy that he had a really good first or second outing, like really good. He had an interception, and it looked like he was on pace to be like a really good potential star. Like he was that good in the first couple games, and then he got ate alive. I don't know what reasons for that, there could be. Coming up from Appalachian State, maybe they're just the speed of the game with some teams got to him. But, he did have an interception, and he did play well at times at safety. I think he tried to play corner, and that just wasn't going to work for him. So I think he'll probably play some safety this year. He's 6'1", so he does have some length. And I like him. I think he's got a chance to make a difference for sure. I don't know to what extent necessarily, but I do think he's a guy that, if he improves enough, because I think a lot of the mistakes I saw him making were mental mistakes, not physical. And he's got the physical ability to run. He can really run, and he's really athletic. So wouldn't be surprised to see him make a bit of a jump this year, especially in his mental game. And, he's a guy, like, of all the guys on this list, he could be as important as anybody because of how little experience we have on the back end. So if he can end up being a guy, oh, God, it would be such a boon for West Virginia. Actually, we need him to be a guy. So, and not just another guy, a dude. So, he's going to be somebody to keep on monitoring as well. Other than that, I was looking up and down the list or the roster. Obviously, when you look at the rooms, like who's returning in the quarterback room? Literally nobody except Scotty. And you can't put Scotty on a list like this. Like he's a known commodity. And some of these guys are known, but I wouldn't not as known as Scotty. Who's coming back in the running back room? Nobody. Who's coming back in the wide receiver room? Well, Jaden Bray. And I could have put Jaden Bray on this list, but everybody knows how talented he is. So I don't feel like he would come out of nowhere if he did do well. Everybody would be like, yep, we were expecting that. So, Cyrus Traub is really the only person you could go with. Or Amoni Weaver is another guy you could have went with. And I wouldn't be against him either, but I like Traub a little more, even though Weaver actually got more playing time last year. Tight end's kind of a cluster because you've obviously got the new guys coming in and Sapp and Ball, but you can't really find another guy that was already here last year outside of Ryan Ward that I believe in. I mean, Sam Hamilton's a freshman. So, there's just not a whole lot there. Cade Bush is a freshman. So, there's that. Then you get to the offensive line. Yeah, Raymond Kovalevsky's on there. And, obviously Nick Cray is a returning starter, should be. So he doesn't qualify for the list really. Aiden Woods obviously does. And you've got obviously a Grayson that's coming into the portal. Marcus Dillard's just getting here as a freshman. Isosa is returning, who we talked about. Trevor Bigelow is, a redshirt freshman and may qualify as one of those guys. I wouldn't hate it. I do like his potential, but he was 267 last year, so he had a lot to gain. Philip Bowser's another guy will be a redshirt freshman. So maybe he could, but there's no way to know without. Same thing with Bigelow. And so you just basically you start to look around and you're like, oh man, there really is very few offensive or any returning talent on this team. You look on the defensive line, that's probably the place there is the most. And I named 2 of the bigger guys, the returning starters. You do have redshirt freshman Wilnerson Telemack, and one other guy. Where is he? No. Oh, I didn't mention Taylor Brown. I guess that's the only one I forgot to mention from earlier. Taylor Brown is on my list, so I'm glad I saw that. I must have overlooked it. It's easy to do because I was scrolling. I didn't go in order in the way I had it typed. Yeah, so that'll be the last one we talk about here in just a second once I get through this list. Yeah, so linebacker we talked about. Ben Cutter probably could have been on this list, but I feel like he came on strongly last year. And so I'd be surprised at this point if he didn't make an impact as one of your top 3 or 4 guys at linebacker, and they're going to be playing 2 or 3 backers at a time. So, obviously he's going to get a lot of playing time. I don't know who else you could look at. That's what I was saying earlier, I guess, is everybody else is kind of either a transfer or high school, and everybody else is kind of gone. So it is what it is there too. So getting back to Taylor Brown, though, obviously he was a freshman last year. Oh, man, like if you're talking about a guy that could just make an impact this year, there is no doubt that Taylor Brown could be not just a monster. Like when I say monster, I mean monster. I'm not exaggerating it here. I mean, Taylor was many of people's favorite recruit from last year. He was a 4-star on some services. He's 6'3", 290, and he is an absolute beast, man. You go watch his high school tape. I'm going to watch it as soon as I'm done with here just to get re-excited about him because, he didn't play last year. It was a surprise, but for whatever reason, he needed a year to get ready. Some guys do, even though they're talented. But man, I think he's ready to play grown man snaps now. And in the interior of the defense where surprises are going to happen, I think he's one of them. I think Taylor Brown could end up being that, especially if he's gotten his body right and everything. That's what you were really hoping for because he's got the power and the anchor. He's got the disruption ability. I mean, you look at his tackles for loss in high school, it was like 14 tackles for loss from the defensive tackle spot. So if he pops early, you could see potentially him start to get 15, 20, 25 snaps a game potentially. And then he'll maybe start to pop and get some TFLs and make some plays to where you've got him in the game late, where he's getting in, interior rush, getting interior and an interior rush off. So, I really like him. He's a kid that I think can really flash, and we'll see if he does because I think he's got the potential to be very, very good. So Taylor Brown, another one of those guys that we really thought would have hit last year, but he didn't. Somebody in the chat says, I saw something where Matt Sig was named Athlete of the Week already and Kevin Brown was named Weight Room Warrior. Yep, that's right. Matt Sig was named, I think it may have been academic, but don't quote me on that 100%. It was either one of the, I think it was academic, but Kevin Brown won Weight Room Warrior of the Week. They actually put a new one out today. Ricky Giles, so a couple other guys are on it. Let me see if I can find out who really quick because it was not it was an easy list to remember. Well, West Virginia football put the tweet out just not even, I don't know, maybe 2 hours ago, something like that, 3. It wasn't long ago for sure. So Malik Agbo is the student athlete of the week this week. Ricky Giles, Ryan Ward, and Nick Cray, which is a good 3 to have, are the athletes, weight room warriors of the week this week. Last week it was Kevin Brown. So actually it's right here. Kevin Brown, Jameer Latimer, and Tyler Stolsky. So those are 3 good ones too, man. Hey, I respect the heck out of it. I would love to see all those guys do well this year because we need them to, right? So we'll see what happens, but thank you guys for joining me late. I get that it's late, and I'm doing this late and all that, but we're just doing what we're doing, right? I really appreciate it. So you guys have a great rest of your night. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll talk more. As always, we'll come up with topics. We'll do them. And we're just going to continue to love on the Mountaineers. We're going to love on you guys. And thank you so much for being here. Like I said, make sure you check out Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin is an amazing, talented, really, I'm being dead serious, an amazing, talented guy that we're lucky to have at the network. I mean, he's a play-by-play guy. He's, got that ESPN type voice. He also hosts Locked On Ducks and absolutely kills it in life. So, Spencer McLaughlin obviously deserves all the praise that he gets, and deservingly so. So make sure you're checking him out. And I will see you guys on the next one. Like, share, subscribe, please, if you don't mind. Before you leave, just hit that like button for me. And I will see you guys on the next one. But remember, don't forget to cue those country roads, and I'll see you next time.